My guest today is Ryan Jones. Ryan has a master's degree in transformational coaching and leadership. Ryan brings a unique perspective to health and wellness. He's fascinated by the intersection of role-playing games and adult development, particularly how games such as Dungeons and Dragons can offer a path to self-discovery and self-actualization. He's currently pursuing a doctorate degree. We're going to talk to Ryan about personal growth, gaming, and how playing games, particularly ones in which you play a role as a character, can offer you a path to self-discovery about who you are and what you're passionate about. I'm interested in learning how Ryan fits this idea into his coaching practice as a life coach. Welcome to my show, Ryan.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for having me.
So tell me your backstory, how you got into coaching. A PhD is a pretty uh, big accomplishment, even starting one, getting accepted, and that presupposes you have college and masters. You're quite serious about this. At first, the idea of a game too doesn't seem as serious. It's fascinating. So tell me your short life story on how you got to your point in life coaching, helping others, and also believing, hey, there's something we overlook. How about this role playing game concept?
Yeah. So I was an actor to start off with. First time I went to school, I studied acting, and I really got a sense of I really got connected to my body, one, because I had to study myself as an instrument. And so I started doing meditation and yoga and like connecting with myself that way, lifting and and then I was also doing human study, like who are you? What is it that you want? What actions do you take to get what you want? What's in the way? And so learning how to observe people from kind of like a morally neutral position, just like here's what you're doing, here's what you think, here's what you feel. And and then and then relating with the character very personally.
Oh, I see. As an actor, of course, you had to get in the head, the character, be the character. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really important as an actor not to judge the character because then you're going to be commenting on the character instead of really being the character.
Yep. You'll be in your head too much instead of in the moment living the
Yeah,
character. You'll be thinking too much.
exactly. And so I acted for many years. I met my wife. We went on a series of really wild adventures together, getting married, having a kid. We did some personal development work together at an organization formerly known as the Wright Foundation, that has since closed down. But I got exposed to this really sophisticated model of human behavior and that resonated a lot with what I'd learned as an actor. And I was like, man, I could really sink my teeth into this. So we went deep on it. At the end of the kind of first year of that program, I was like, I really want to go back to school. I want to be Dr. Jones. Like, I want to do this. And I started coaching people and finished my undergrad online, did my master's, and now I'm in the doctorate here.
Nice. And then how'd you figure out a way, or are you still working on it in your PhD program well, the concept, explain the concept, particularly is it Dungeons and Dragons, the game, the role playing you think is most useful because there's so many characters or something like that?
Yeah, gaming has always been a big part of my life. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since 2004, and just like getting together with my friends and making up characters, making up a world, and having adventures has always been something that's really appealed to me. I've always loved fantasy and science fiction novels. So it's like a part of my life that's that's been a real consistent pulse of like interest and engagement. And as I've been kind of gearing up and starting this doctorate program, I've been like, man, like, how do I, like, what do I do? Like, what do I study? What do I contribute? And, and I went to a convention this last year for the first time in a long time because I've been really busy. I've been, married, kids. So I haven't had time to maybe engage with the hobby in the way that I had in the past. But I went back and I was like, man,
The gaming hobby?
yeah, the gaming hobby. So the Gen Con is it's the best 4 days in gaming. It's 70,000 people once a year come to this convention center and just share the love of gaming. And I got to participate in that. And I realized like, man, I really want to make this a bigger part of my life.
Hmm.
And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how how much of what I was learning through my coaching practice and through the social emotional intelligence skills that I've been building in that really applied in a tabletop game where there's a group dynamic. So it's a bunch of individuals coming together to do something together. There's
For those who, I only played Dungeons and Dragons once with
Mhm.
my nephew because it was Christmas last year and it was his thing. For someone who's never played D&D, as they call it, explain the game real quick, how there's so many characters and how, like you said, you create the story. Like there's a master gamer that you pick and he writes the story or something like that.
Yeah, in a tabletop role-playing game, you have a group of people who come together to essentially tell a story. And usually within the structure of the game, one of those people will be the game master or the referee essentially, who say, okay, I know the rules and I'm going to adjudicate the rules, and I'm also going to present the players with a world to engage with and villains and allies and events, things are happening. So the one player is kind of taking responsibility for the world around the players. And then all the other players at the table have one persona that they've created.
In the Game Master, again, for those who've never played it, because like, well, I just make up my own game. Kind of. There's already a certain number of characters and places you can go and things you can do and skills characters can have. There's a huge book, a lot of possibilities. And the Game Master picks and chooses, kind of like you're God and you're creating your own world with people and what they can do, right? Oh, then
Yeah.
you let the people actually pick who they want to be or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And in the best games, the players have created characters that want something for themselves, that have some kind of objective, something they want to do, an impact they want to have. And then the DM,
How do you do that as a player? How do you get to do that?
that's a great question. So,
I can't remember. I remember, but I do remember I got to pick, do you want to be smarter or stronger or have a magic power that you can throw, um, throw, fire, breathe fire or turn invisible? You get
yeah.
to pick stuff, right?
Yeah, so there are choices in the character creation and depending on what game you're playing, many people are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. That's kind of the most popular one. But every game system will provide you with an idea of like a setting, like what kind of world does this game take place in? What kind of characters occupy this world? What do characters do in this world when they're trying to overcome obstacles? And that might be in Dungeons and Dragons, I might be an elf and I use magic and I cast fireballs or magic missiles. And then I might play in a post-apocalyptic world where survival is really important. We need to find food and water and negotiate peace with another settlement. Or or maybe we're, film noir, detectives and we're solving a mystery. There are so many different settings in which a tabletop role-playing game can take place because there are so many different stories that people want to tell. And
Mhm.
so you really have,
It's not like playing Monopoly or Candyland, where
yeah,
you just roll the dice and move the player forward. And
yeah, yeah.
uh,
It's um, uh, uh, highly iterative, highly replayable.
possibilities, like infinite possibilities. It just comes to the game master to design a game that either people like playing or not, and then people
Yeah,
get to pick their characters. Yeah, and they really don't know how well those characters are going to work in the game because they don't know the plan that the game master has, right?
yeah, yeah,
So the game master knows things that the players don't.
yeah,
Yeah. So how do you work that into your
yeah. So this is an emerging area of interest for me. It's an emerging kind of field. There's a kind of an emerging interest in the use of tabletop games for therapy, for leadership development in organizations and for education. And so I'm hoping to add to that body of academic literature and kind of that body of knowledge. Um,
You know, the leadership one's interesting because I've only played the game once with my nephew and my brother and sister-in-law. So we got some young people, some old people, a game master, my nephew, who he wants to win the game. Um, but in terms of leadership, for those again who haven't played the game, you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, you can team up. Other players can strategize, right, to overpower or win or the challenge working together, right?
yeah. And in many, I would say in most cases, the players make up a party. So they're together in a group and they have some kind of unified purpose, whether it's beating the big bad guy, saving the princess, getting the treasure, slaying the dragon. It's we're all working together to try to overcome obstacles to get to an outcome.
But you're also trying to win the game, meaning in the end, only one can win, right?
That's actually not true. It's so
Oh,
it's so it's
okay.
it's to, it's totally collaborative
Hmm.
in that the the win condition of the game is did we tell a cool story?
Oh.
That's how you win is you tell a really engaging, immersive, fun, interesting story together.
So you don't get killed in Dungeons and Dragons?
You might, and that might be really cathartic and cool potentially. You're saving your friends from the breath of the dragon and standing in the doorway against the horde while your friends escape. That's a cool possibility.
And then say there's only one player standing because everybody gives their life for the one player. I can't remember how the game's over. We couldn't finish the game. It was a holiday weekend and we played it for a couple hours. The game master designed it so complex that we didn't have enough time to finish. When you say the winner is the best story, there's no ultimate winner in the end.
Yeah. So it's very much like if you read, like, what's your favorite fictional story you've ever read?
Well, I don't read a lot of fiction. Too much of a scientist or a busy person to read fiction.
Maybe something from your childhood.
What comes to mind, the John Grisham, the Stephen King, Pulp Fiction, basically. If I get time down, I'm reading something that it didn't win some award for outstanding literature. It's a
Nice.
good story, but it's a great story. Yeah.
And so in every story, you have the events that occur in the book, but then something happened before then. So there's a backstory that all these characters in the world have,
Hmm.
and then what happens in the book happens, and then and then the events theoretically continue beyond the end of the book.
That's how they write a series.
Exactly.
When there's a bestseller, like even Star Wars. Well, we have Star Wars in the future. How are we going to keep going? Oh, we'll do a pre-Star Wars. And then a pre-Star Wars to that. Yeah. Where Darth Vader was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay. All right. So then in terms of coaching, I'm getting an idea how you could observe someone who they choose to be.
So I think for a lot of people, we create characters a little unconsciously. Like I'm making choices because that's what sounds appealing at the time. But I think a lot of in any creative act, we draw on ourselves for the creative act. So whenever I'm creating a character, I'm creating some reaction to myself. Either the character is aspirational, it's like something I wish I was, or something I wish I wasn't.
Done that. Yeah. Done that in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we kind of do that automatically. Like it's something we can't help but do.
It's also safe. It's safe because I feel I can do it in the game. Where in real life, maybe I'm not a kick-ass martial arts, kung fu guy. I get my butt kicked. But in the game, I'm going to choose to be the guy who can, has that skill. Like, don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe the magician because I'm too much of a scientist in real life. And I'm like, oh, I'll be the magic guy.
Yeah. Well, and that so you've got this like martial artist that you want to be. And then there's something about that that's really appealing to you. Like, can you say a little bit more about that archetype or that kind of
It
person?
means I can. I can walk down the street and not be so afraid. I can take care of somebody else better if they're being hurt, just like in the movies, be the hero.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in the game, you're then acting out this kind of aspirational journey.
Well,
So
in
then,
that same game, I'm also distracted. Well, if I'm only strong and I have no brains and no magic, it's kind of like putting all your investments into one stock portfolio. So I'm going to choose more strength, being a stronger martial arts guy, but I still need a few ingredients just in case I need a little bit of brains and a little bit of magic.
Mhm. So you're kind of playing like I want to play into this archetype, but not all the way.
Well, I
I
have
want
no idea what my nephew as the game master has in mind, and I could get killed real easy if it turns out strength didn't do you any good because I'm too powerful of a magician and I just did magic on you or something. Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities with that game. That book on choices is pretty thick that you can pick from.
yeah, yeah. And so the how the coaching kind of comes into play is like, let's see, where are you in your life right now? Like, what are the stories? What are the perceived limitations? What are you feeling? Like, what's present for you? And then what kind of character would help you work that in this kind of in this safe environment?
Hmm.
Whether that's an interpersonal skill or whether that's like a self-efficacy thing or a scarcity thing or what
Oh, so you don't actually have your clients play a game. It's kind of cool. I'm getting where you're going with this. But you take kind of like it's the Hollywood formula for storytelling. You have a hero, a villain, a story. Somehow you are, by asking the questions like you just asked me, it's as if you're relating it to a game, but you're not really playing a game.
well, and so there's this idea in gaming of like a session zero, where we're gathered together. We're not ready to start the story, but we want to set up the story. We want to build our characters together. We want to get a sense for like what's important to us as a group. What kind of game do we want to play? And in that environment, in that session zero, I might guide someone to like man, I'm really just feeling super pissed off about like in my relationship with my boss at work.
Hmm.
Like, okay, what's that about? Well, I'm feeling really disaffirmed. Like, I feel like they don't like me. So here's this issue of like being likable or being liked or being disliked. So then we might say like, well, how do you want to like lean into that? Well, maybe I don't give a about being liked. Maybe I just want to be like a disagreeable person. Like I have a lot of trouble with that. I try to be really agreeable all the time and I want people to like me and this guy's just not liking me. And
We're in the coaching session now, right? Where you're
yeah, yeah,
pretending you
yeah.
can, okay.
So then you might say, okay, well, I'm going to play Grognark the Barbarian, who doesn't give a about like who doesn't give a about being liked, and we'll just see how that feels. That's the character that this person's playing. So then we go in, we have a session of play. They have a social interaction where they're at a ball and rules, the rules are really important and it's important to be liked, but this character is like, "No, I'm not going to be likable. I'm going to break the rules and I'm going to engage with my anger in that way." And da 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 da, we get to the end of the session and then we do a debrief. And we essentially say, like, what did your character do? Like, what struck you about what your character did this session?
Hmm.
What were they thinking and feeling? You know, what did you think and feel about that?
Cool. It's almost like you were stepping out of yourself for a while and you could say and do things you couldn't do unless you stepped into the character.
Yeah. With the idea that by opening up those possibilities in character and trying things you wouldn't normally try, that maybe you learn something about how the world works or how you
Yeah.
are that's a little different from who you were before.
Yep.
And then you can go out into your life and say, okay, 5 times this week, I'm going to say no to somebody, or I'm going to break a rule on purpose. I'm going to break a social rule on purpose and see what happens.
It was almost like kind of being an actor. Like if I had another session or two with you doing that, which might really get me excited to come to a session because, well, you have to play a game. It's not really a coaching session, it's a game session.
Yeah,
Maybe you have can, it's fun. It's fun. But then like you're as an actor, you were, your clients potentially could kind of like pretend they're John Wayne or pretend they're the character when they're confronted with the real situation in real life and just do like they did in your office.
exactly. And so it's that rehearsal. It's like I'm rehearsing a set of skills that I haven't had historically, but that this character possesses. We're just taking that
Yeah.
like they've got it. So I can and that's how we learn. How children learn to do something new is by pretending they know how to do it already.
In absorption, by seeing someone else in absorption and
Well, even exactly. It's by doing that rehearsal in the game, when the environment shows up in my life for this choice to be made,
mhm.
I've now run the I've run the neural pattern already. So I'm already primed to take the risk that I would not have historically taken.
Like you practiced.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. And so, how many sessions might this go on before something changes the game or the character? Or they say, you know what, I didn't like being the strong guy. I want to pretend I'm the smart guy. And you go, okay, let's play it that way. Like you can change characters.
Yeah, yeah, potentially. I mean, it the cool thing about role-playing games is you can play a one shot like you did with your nephew. You can play one time and it's a whole thing. Or you can play a short adventure that has 4 sessions in it. Or you can play, I played in campaigns that lasted 2 or 3 years, where you're playing the same character throughout and you're watching them grow and you're kind of growing along with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is this something you've already started to do with your clients, or is it something that you're kind of working out with your doctorate degree and whatnot?
Yeah, it's something I've studied. I've definitely started to network in with the people who've done kind of the foundational research in this area. Sarah Lynn Bowman, and this concept of bleed, this idea that we bleed ourselves into the character and the character can bleed out into us as well, is foundational to her work. Um, I'm starting in January. I'm going to do a beta test because, as far as I can tell, nobody's done this with a coaching model before. People have done it with therapeutic models, but this will be kind of a new thing that nobody's done before. So I'm going to try it and see how it goes.
It doesn't sound like it could do any. It sounds great, wonderful. Why do you think it hasn't been done before?
That's a good question. I think that until recently, Dungeons and Dragons has kind of a fraught, like, cultural history, and but I think with the recent advent of like Critical Role and Stranger Things, I think that,
Hmm.
and also with the pandemic, I think people are kind of like waking up to how fun it is and how nourishing it is to sit down with other people and create something together that that has no other, there's no, it's not going anywhere. It's intrinsically valuable.
One idea that came to my mind when you were telling me about the history and how you got into this, and back to there was the conference, which you hadn't gone to in a while, is that accidentally, kind of like you invent something you didn't know you were looking for, because you were being your authentic self and already had the interest in gaming, you didn't go out and try to make a derivative of an existing coaching method. You're like, what if I took what I did, what I like, my passion, and had an interest in and worked it into my practice? And maybe a lot of people think that's not possible. You can't work something in that you have an interest in, and you were able to because it's you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it it was funny to when I was coming home from the convention and this idea started to occur to me. It was like a snowball. It was like, oh, duh, oh, absolutely, of course. It's like, how did I not think of this before? It's a, it's like there's the individual and their relationship with themselves, like that they're accessing through this character. There's the individual and the relationship between people they're close, like that theoretically they're close with or could or are going to become closer with because you know a game is interactive, and so you and I are we're going to be our stuff is going to be come up and it's going to come up in the game and we're going to so there's a cool individual dynamic, there's a cool group dynamic, there's a cool you have a dedicated facilitator, so it's just like so many of the
Oh,
pieces.
that opens the expansion for possibilities, meaning I hadn't thought of unique characters. Would there be a situation, it sounds kind of risky. You could do with couples therapy really well, probably,
Yeah, yeah,
where you'd have two people live in the same room with you
yeah,
as a coaching, as you know, as a coach. Because normally you do coaching sessions privately, right?
yeah. But yeah, and there's yeah, it's that the one of the reasons this is really appealing to me actually is because I think there's a real I'm getting to the point where I I feel good charging more money than a lot of people are comfortable paying because of my level of expertise and my having
Hmm.
a pursuing a doctoral degree. And so I think a lot of the people that would really enjoy working with me, it's a little financially inaccessible to work one-on-one. And so having an opportunity to gather a group of like 5 or 6 people who,
Mm.
who can like buy in at a lower cost point and get a ton of value and have a lot of fun together.
There is value in just sitting and watching somebody else transform, especially if it's the same issue you're having. You don't even need to speak if you see someone, especially something like suicide or going to work and being frustrated with your job or being weak and wish you were strong. You so many common themes. You just watch someone else and you go, "Wow, I can do that. I can take that home with me."
Yeah. Yeah. In the coaching model I work with, we call that co-voyaging, where I'm along with you on your ride, and I'm applying it to myself as you're learning and growing, I'm learning and growing along with you. I think you absolutely nailed that.
So I'm trying to imagine when this is in place, more than a beta, it's really done.
Yeah.
Would I go into your office and on the walls would be posters with characters to choose, or you'd hand me a book, kind of like the Dungeons and Dragon, like a Bible to choose a character from? How would it actually look and feel in your office?
So there's a game I'm kind of co-developing. Um, I really wanted to build a game that would because Dungeons and Dragons is wonderful, but it's not designed for personal development. It's a war game. And so I'm working with someone to develop a game that would be like specifically designed where the mechanics themselves facilitate the emergence of the people who play the game. And so in any given group, we would gather together and decide like, hey, what setting are you guys drawn to? Do you want zombie apocalypse? Do you want high fantasy? Do you want grungy sci-fi? What kind of world do you want to play in?
So would it be like if they don't do it in Dungeons and Dragons, but if the game master asked the characters, players, help me design the game like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that the players themselves have a lot of agency in the world and in the story. So they're really making an environment for themselves that will facilitate their emergence, that they're going to be deeply engaged in. And
Gotcha.
then and then they can all create characters together and be like, "Oh, so these are the kind of characters that occupy this world. These are the kind of issues we're interested in as people that we want to play with in the game." And so, what kind of characters deal with these issues? You know, whether it's like, firefighters or detectives or adventurers or, what have you.
So instead of musicians and knights in shining armor and wizards, it would be firemen, accountants, engineers, uh, you know, they like be characters that are real.
Sure. Or talking animals, or, it could be anything.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can present a palette of options, absolutely. But ideally that the players are doing all the work. They're the ones who are generating the world in which they're really going to like fly in. And then And then my job as a facilitator is to hold space for them to self-organize, to do the thing that they need to do, and and then to and then to reflect and provide them with crises, to provide them with like difficult problems that they have to solve in character, and that I may not even have the answer to, you know? So I haven't even decided what the solution is. They really need to be generative. They really need to be creative and discover for themselves how they're going to accomplish this. And then and then the I think that the satisfaction available in that style of play is much higher than I as the GM, I already know who the big bad guy is. I already know what everything's going to happen, and you all are on my thrill ride that I've
That sounds depressing. I think that's why people are depressed. I have to go to work. I have to go to school. I have to take this subject matter. I have to be on time. It sounds like the real world.
yeah.
Why we have problems.
Yeah.
But you gotta live in the real world. So uh guess you're trying to make it better for people.
Yeah.
So what's in the near future? Where is there what's how's it developing?
Yeah. So I'm doing work with an organization called Lead RPG, and this is a dude named Joe Lasley who's developed like a game model that he takes into organizations. And so doing some coaching and some work with him. There's a They just finished a really cool Kickstarter, Tabletop EDU, where they're building a book to provide teachers with the tools necessary to accomplish learning objectives with their students in classrooms.
Hmm.
And so I'm doing some consulting with them and kind of helping them run their Discord. And then finishing my degree, I'm going to be at Gen Con. I'm going to be at PAX Unplugged. I'm going to be at a bunch of conventions this year, speaking and doing events.
Nice.
Um, and then running this beta, and then running an alpha group, and then and kind of launching this kind of coaching model.
So also noticed you are a martial arts guy for kind of somewhat the real thing,
Yeah.
especially yoga. I saw your handstand, well, push up. It was a sideways push up, not a handstand, not a push up. Two hands on the ground, but your legs are out like you're doing a push up. I couldn't do it. You have a love for martial arts as well as the gaming. How does that fit into your coaching practice, or is it a completely separate business?
Yeah. I So the tabletop RPG thing is a new kind of direction I'm headed in. Um, but I will always and forever be a holistic person. Like I'm a dude with a body and a breath instrument and a voice, and so it's like I love to sing. I love breathing. I love the Wim Hof. I love martial arts. I love sparring. I love
The Wim Hof is the guy who jumps in the cold water in the middle
yeah
of winter, right?
yeah. So it's really like I'm creating a life for myself where I feel really fantastic in my body, where I've got this like really robust, beautiful set of relationships, and and so those are like some of the modalities that I bring into my coaching, and it just depends on what people want, you know? I work with a lot of different kind of people.
To me, it's like you're still working because key to your discovery on how to do gaming in an innovative way that no one's doing, and maybe a really effective way no one had even realized how effective it is once you get started. You would only have gotten there if you stayed authentic. So to me, it's like Da Vinci, he went and painted the Mona Lisa, but he was an engineer. Maybe he needed to go to paint the Mona Lisa to stay somehow authentic in his head and his brain and his
Mhm.
thinking. And he's really working because if he didn't paint it, he wouldn't be able to design engineering, even though he's not getting paid to do both. So I just wondered, was part of that just part of who
Yeah.
you are? So you have to, it's technically like it's related, even though it's not directly related.
Yeah. It's like I love this word. I feel kind of full of myself using it, but like polymath. Like
Hmm.
I'm someone I have many deep interests, and what I find is that they're integrative. Like things from acting relate to like
Oh,
my
right. Yeah.
relationship
Good
with
point. The
people.
acting too. Yep.
Well, you know, it all kind of it all is it's all connected.
The
And the
tool
more
bag.
yeah. And the more I work with people, the more I see how people's lives are like really, really, really deeply connected. All your activity
Hmm.
produces who you are and your experience of life. And so being mindful, being conscious, and being intentional about every element of your life can only help you become like an integrated, like mature, you know.
Not cutting one thing off because if I was Da Vinci doing the engineering and I said, you know what? I got to focus on engineering. I can't paint today or this week, or I'm just never going to paint or play or sing again. And you wouldn't be so creative as an engineer.
Yeah.
Don't realize you just destroyed, hurt yourself, hurt
Yeah.
everybody.
It's funny. I work, one of my clients is a conductor, and he had the opportunity to work with I think they were in Colorado. It was an amateur orchestra, but they were all physicians. So they're all like medical doctors.
Hmm.
And he said they were some of the best amateur. It was like they rivaled professional groups in many, many ways because they were like highly educated, highly engaged in their lives, and they maintained this creative outlet while they were doing, their analytical, you know,
We're so biased. I am. I'm one of them. If I just saw them before you told me they were also physicians, I would think they're great. Well, they are great. But once you tell me they're physicians, or if I buy a ticket to the show knowing they're physicians, for some reason now I don't think they're as good as musicians. Why do you suppose we feel like we can't identify people uh, with more than one hat? Like they have to pick a hat. We can only recognize them doing one thing great.
that's a good question. I think that one of the troubles I think we have as humans is we tend to view the world and one another and ourselves as fixed. So we tend to, and it's just a natural thing to do. We create categories and boxes for people.
Hmm.
And that's just something because it's very efficient. And so I think and then we become really attached to those models of like how people are. I
Yep.
mean, you see it in like when a family member tries to change, or when you try to change and you go back into your family, people assume that you're a certain kind of way, and it's difficult for them to see you another kind of way. So I think it's very natural that we do that. And I also think it's one of the great issues that we have to deal with kind of in our own psyches is learning how to see that we are all in process and we're all changing all the time.
I use Da Vinci so much because it's so common. You get if you're sick of hearing me saying it, imagine if you saw Da Vinci painting and you said, "Who are you?" Because people like to say, "What do you do?" And if you ask Da Vinci, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm painting. And then he's the same guy who's inventing something spectacular invention. What do you say to people when they ask you what you do? If he said he was a painter, you'd never know about his engineering. And if you saw him doing engineering, you'd probably think he can't do an engineering. He's a painter. Right? Right, Ryan? So it's what do you do when people ask you, what do you suggest people do when people say, Daniel, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I think it's okay to be misunderstood by people. And so I think there's a level at which it really is like it's okay for people only to know a part of you.
Mm.
But I think that closely people want to, the more close someone wants to be with you, the more deeply they want to know you, the more opportunity they'll have to understand who you really are. And at every juncture, you simply show them who you are in that moment. Like I generally say, I'm an emergence coach, but I'm also a martial artist and I'm also a dancer and I'm also a singer and I'm also an actor and I'm also a dad and I'm also a gamer and so
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just how we are.
Or if someone asks you who you are, I said, I'm Daniel Steve.
Mm.
It's just like some people they look at you like a deer in the headlights. Like it's not what they're expecting. Because Da Vinci would probably say, I'm Leonard Da Vinci. What do you think? I wouldn't say painter. I wouldn't say engineer. I would say I'm Daniel. When people ask me that, I coach them for like, what do you really want to know? You want to know how much money I make. That's what you really want to know,
Mm.
right? What do you do?
Yeah.
They're fascinated by. How's the guy have long hair? He's doing what he wants to do. Is he getting paid to do that? How much does he make? Judgmental.
Yeah.
Whereas I encourage him, you're a realtor and you want to be a dance instructor. When someone asks you, what do? You got to think about, do you want to sell a house? Say realtor. Do you want
Mm.
to invite people to your new authentic dance coaching classes? You got to pick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, and it's that like we, and there's nothing wrong with this, but we construct personas. It's like on the even authentic personas. Even if in this conversation where you and I have been really like with one another, I really felt like you felt me and I've been feeling you. Like we can, this is a snapshot of who we are. That's who I am right now.
Hmm.
But and there's a definition of authenticity that I really love that says authenticity is being true to who I'm becoming. So there's this, and it goes in with this idea of emergence that like there's something in me that's always emerging. I'm always in a process of organizing myself, and something's in the process of expressing itself through me. And it's like 2 days from now, this version of me won't be authentic anymore, you know?
I think it's a better way to open up a conversation too. If somebody asks you that, it's an opportunity to inspire them to be more than they can be or be something they want to be and are dragging their feet. How did you just put it, Ryan? Before I'm I am aspiring to become I am off. What did you say in terms of
I'm I'm being true to who I could become.
nice?
I'm not recreating who I've been, but I'm in the moment.
Opens a whole line of dialogue for a story on
Mm.
whoever you're speaking with, both yours and their backstory and their future and what you're doing and who you want to be and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because who we're becoming is sourced in who we've been, you know? It's like, Daniel Stee is here in this moment with Ryan and he's becoming, a fantastic podcast host. Um, but that person is based on, Daniel Stee was once 5 years old and had a certain kind of relationship
Yeah.
with his mom and dad and, you know,
Yeah.
so
So this guy, I have to ask you this because I have you on the show. The cold water guy that jumps into the lake in the
oh,
middle of
Wim Hof.
winter,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Winhoff. So I watch his videos, and Russell Brand is a fan of his. I'm the not skeptic. I'm just like, well, what if his body is made for that, built for that? Like I grew up in the desert. I'm acclimatized to going without water for 2 days on a 2 cups of water somehow that should be possible. What if he's built for that and yet he's encouraging people to do it that it's just good for him? What do you think? Is there really validity behind what he's doing? Should everybody jump into the lake in the middle of winter?
Well, so Wim Hof is a pioneer. He's a madman. He's a shaman. Like that dude's out there. But I think he's pointing towards something that is very real. And I can only speak really to my personal experience and the little bit that I've read.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a California boy. I grew up in 72, sunny, all year round. And then I moved to Chicago where it is cold, 6 months out of the year. And I started doing these cold plunges. I started doing cold showers. I started jumping in the lake every day during the winter. And like um the second year I was doing it, I went out for a run and it was and my body went, "Oh, nice, the cold." And it was the first time I'd been like, "Oh, my body likes this now. My body wants this now."
Hmm.
And I I've gotten a lot it's really helped me with some depression that I had in the past.
Hmm.
Um I think it's a really for me the highest value is spiritual. I feel like I've done a lot of work with like psychedelics and stuff like that in the past and not so much anymore, but doing the cold plunge and getting through that first minute of
Is it
my body
because
wants.
Is it because it's psychological, I can do it, I did it, or physiological, like something in the body, the bloodstream, being shocked like that actually does something?
Well, so there's well documented kind of epinephrine, norepinephrine like gets released into the system. So you're getting a hit of powerful chemicals,
I
and
see.
then there's a several hour spike of dopamine afterwards. So it's really good for upregulating and then getting. Oh man, yeah, life is good. Like I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive right now. I made
Dopamine.
it. Yeah.
Well, that's a simple explanation. The shock releases a bunch of dopamine, which is makes you more happier. That's a simple explanation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other ways you can get it besides jumping into cold water?
Oh, I'm sure. I know like people who get tattoos, say they report, the runner's high is not the same but similar. I think for like bang for your buck in terms of time and efficacy, cold plunge is really, really effective. Um, yeah, and then for me, I every time I go to do it, I am scared and my body's like, please don't do that again. Please don't do it. Please don't. Please don't. Please don't. And then I do it. And for the first minute, it's torture. It's so intense. The sensation is so intense. My body wants so badly for me to get out. But then after that first minute, the body relaxes and I get just like crystalline clarity of mind. And I've had some really extraordinary kind of like spiritual meditative moments in the cold. Just like again, like the kinds of experiences that I haven't had outside of psychedelics, I've had in the cold.
Hmm. Interesting. It's interesting to hear that you can get it somewhere other ways. It does make sense. Jumping in the cold water is just the most predictable, easy. You can get cold water most everywhere. Way to do it. Knowing that it's not directly associated with the cold, more the shock and the dopamine. I'm gonna have to process, think about that for a while. See if I can
Yeah.
come up with some well, people probably have, like you say, the runner's high, another easy way besides jumping into cold water.
Well, and if you ever wanna like I always recommend like start with cold showers at the end of your shower. Just dial in the cold, hang out in there a minute.
In the desert, like, Phoenix, you, especially in the summertime, there's no such thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's colder water, cooler water, but
Yeah.
in fact, the swimming pool, you can't even go in the swimming pool in the summertime. It's beyond lukewarm. It's not even pleasant.
Oh man.
Yeah. Uh, but you can drive north and jump in the lake, but we don't have Michigan cold water.
Yeah.
May not be a same thing. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you want to circle back to the game or your business coaching and how you're going to do the gaming with that?
Yeah. I guess just to plug myself,
Hmm.
I'm Ryan Allen Jones. My website is www.raj.coach. So super easy.
It'll be in the show notes.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And then yeah. Yeah, I'm
Raj.coach. So you took the URL coach
yeah.
instead of com,
Yeah.
and it's your initials Raj.coach. Yep. Uh, and details will be in the show notes. And then, one last thing. Do you see, we mentioned how like you're Da Vinci, a polymath, you're doing different things. Is there a way you might try to integrate jumping in? Okay, go to my office. We're going to play a game. Then you're going to do some push-ups on your hands and then jump in the cold water lake because it's holistic. Holistic.
I
Yeah.
so my dream is I want a master's program where I get people for like 2.5 years and we get to do martial arts, we get to do like body work, we get to do breath work, we get to do meditation, we get to do critical thinking and writing and oratory
Hmm.
and just like building a really comprehensive person who's so capable of like doing what they need to do in the world that
Hmm.
like like this like warrior poet, kind of philosopher king, like
Well, like a real life coach, not just someone who everyone's like, you got to niche in your life coaching if you're a life coach. Well, if you're niching, what do I do if I have a question about business and you're a relationship coach and I need a business coach or I need a health coach? You know, they're doing it to market themselves. So
yeah.
people funnel, but it seems holistic and long term, a better quote life coach.
Yeah. Well, like I don't know, I've been working with people for like 4 years at this point, and we hit everything. Like they've lost weight, they're working out, they're working on their relationships,
Right.
they're finding the next gig or trying to do better at work. It's like
Yep.
it all connects. And so unless you really feel comfortable with people's whole lives, you're not going to be able to affect them at the level that you could if you were.
And you might help them great in one area, but if they're weak in 9 out of 10 other ones, what good's that going to do?
Yeah.
I can go to work perfectly. I come home, I have no relationship skills. I talk to my partner, great. I go to work, I can't talk to people. I have no, and my business is bad. Yeah, it's all important. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. It's interesting, and I wish you the best. And maybe we can have you back in 6 months or whatnot, and you can give me more of a rundown how a visit to your office, not to jump in the cold water, but to play the games.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds good. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Daniel. It was really a pleasure.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
Yeah, you too.